Happy Tuesday. Today is Tuesday, July 19th, 2022, and today's daily Bible readings come to us from Psalm 119, 17 through 32, Amos 8, 13, 9 through 4, 8, 13 through 9, 4, 1 John 2, 1 through 6, or you could have read Psalm 119, 97 through 104, Proverbs 9, 1 through 18, and then 1 John again. I'm going to look at Amos and talk about feeling faint. Because this section from Amos, it's a vision of impending doom, things going terribly, terribly wrong. It's this idea of drought and trembling, young men and women, fainting from thirst. The very creatures on the face of the earth start attacking the people. It's like everything that was, good, that was created good in Eden has, been turned against Israel. Creation itself has turned against them at God's word. It's a common vision that we see in the prophets and the minor prophets. It's an apocalyptic and I mean apocalyptic in the way that we like to use it nowadays. But anyway, an apocalyptic, cataclysmic collapse of the natural order of the natural world, as nature. It's almost like nature is reacting to mankind's selfishness, and well, let's just say it's a common this is a common vision. Someday I'm going to write a kind of a study about this, about how this idea of environmental collapse being linked to the selfishness and just the wanton, like, arrogance of mankind. So it's something we see over and over again in the Bible. The interesting thing is, we often hear people be confused by these visions that we see in the Old Testament. They ask, well, how could he? How could God do this? The idea that God could vengefully turn creation on his people. We like to think that he isn't compatible. This God that we see, in the Old Testament, the minor prophets, isn't compatible with the meek Christ we see in the New Testament. And I'm certain that point of view isn't true. It's one and the same, and it's completely compatible. This isn't some malevolent deity that's just out for fun, just likes to cause pain and suffering. He is responding to the rottenness of his people. Go back and look at the first part of this chapter. I mean, that's where he starts off. He shows a bowl of fruit. He's like, their time is ready. I think the imagery is that it's, kind of like it's a rotten bowl of fruit and it's time to dump it out. He's responding to that rottenness that's in his people, especially the hypocrisy of the wealthy and the powerful, the very people that go about proclaiming his name, being like, "Oh, we're God's nation," blah blah blah. But they're really rotten to the core. They're the wealthy and the powerful, especially because even though they might claim his name, but they don't claim any of his virtues. In other words, they greedily consume their neighbors, especially the weakest among their neighbors. So now they themselves are being consumed as God allows creation to quake in revulsion to their disgusting nature. It's almost like creation itself is just shaking them off because it just it can't deal with them anymore. The point of this being this text is there's an expectation. If you're going to call yourselves God's people, if you're going to call yourself by God's name, that there's an expectation that you will behave like you're his people. And if they don't, the Bible asks, are you really my people? And that's where I get to the fact that this isn't out of the ordinary. This isn't like out of keeping with what we see in the New Testament, because like the other text for today, if you notice, was 1 John 2, 1 through 6. And I'm going to actually read 3 through 6. But John has this idea that, hey, if you're going to call yourself by his name, you should probably behave like him. You should allow his way of being to be your way of being. And he says this, he says, "Now by this we may be sure that we know him if we obey his commandments. Whoever says, I have come to know him, but does not obey his commandments is a liar, and in such a person the truth does not exist. But whoever obeys his word, truly in this person the love of God has reached perfection. By this we may be sure that we are in him. Whoever says, I abide in him, ought to walk just as he walked." Anyway, that's the DBR for today. Get out, enjoy the day. We'll talk to you later. Boop.